All right, I'm here to talk about my next dirty word. Taxes. Taxes. I saw a bumper sticker not long ago and it said, taxation is theft. No. Taxes aren't theft. The way I see taxes is I see them as the original crowdfunding for civilization. Because you cannot have a civilization without taxes in some form. I mean, think about your studies of world history. In Mesopotamia, they collected taxes and they built irrigation ditches with it. In ancient Rome, they built aqueducts and roads and bridges. You take your money as a society, as a community, and you pool it together in a public fund via taxation, and then you turn around and you spend that money in ways that hopefully build your community, build your society. Okay, taxation is not theft. It's crowdfunding to support civilization. Now, you can have legitimate debates on taxes over whether certain portions of society are paying their fair share in taxes. And I would argue, and most economists would argue, that there are certain portions of society that are not paying their fair share of taxes, such as the largest corporations and the very wealthiest among us. You can also have a legitimate debate over whether or not tax monies are being judiciously spent and appropriately spent, okay? But this whole notion that taxes are bad and that we have to get rid of them at all costs, it's not only nonsense, it's very destructive to our society. But there are politicians out there, they spend their entire career talking about nothing but slashing taxes and cutting taxes. Oh, and by the way, taxes is also a word that appears in the Constitution. And by now, I think you're sensing a trend. There are so many dirty words in this document, I'm surprised they don't have to cover it up at the bookstore before you can buy it. But the word taxes appears in this document. Yeah, Congress is given taxing authority in Article 1 of the Constitution. And in fact, they say that Congress has the right to tax to provide for the general welfare of the United States. Okay, again, that word welfare appeared again. It's another dirty word. So taxes are necessary to support our society, all right? But you have these politicians that always want to slash taxes. I call them the slashers. We even have one here in the Fort Wayne, Indiana area. His name is Jason. I have no idea whether or not he wears a hockey mask. But every time they want to slash taxes, these politicians, they always promise that private money will come pouring in to fill the breach, right? Once we slash taxes, we'll make this an attractive environment for business and private investment will come pouring in. They all stood there in the Rose Garden in 2017 and said that when they passed the big tax cut, right? That's the promise of trickle-down. Well, before I get into any examples as to why that doesn't work, trickle-down does not work unless you're a Russian call girl. It works then. But before I get to any actual examples of this, let's think about the logic for a moment. Because what are you doing when you are cutting taxes? What you are doing as a community is you are divesting from yourselves as a community. You're pulling your public money out as a society. So ask yourselves this question. How do you convince private sector money and private investment money to pour their investment into your community while you are busy pulling your money out and divesting as a community in the form of tax cuts? Imagine going on the Shark Tank with that sales pitch. Everyone seen the Shark Tank? Okay, sharks. I have this great investment opportunity for you. It's called Fort Wayne, Indiana. You need to dump your money into this place. Oh, Well, that's a very interesting sales pitch, Fort Wayne, Indiana. What do you have invested in this project of yours? What's your skin in the game? Oh. Oh, well, it's funny you mention that because, we used to invest X amount, but now we're pulling back. We're taking our money out. But we think it's a really good opportunity for you to jump in. If you think that would make a good sales pitch, congratulations, you're a much better salesperson than me. Because I think you'd be chumming the water in the Shark Tank with that. And the reality is, that's what happens. Look at Governor Brownback in Kansas in 2010. He was a slasher. He went in, did the slashing, promised all this private investment would come to the state of Kansas. It didn't happen. The budgetary issues got horrible there. They had to cut back on school and all kinds of other things. Look at Minnesota and Wisconsin side by side. In 2010, Scott Walker, a slasher, went into Wisconsin, and they had a Democratic governor in Minnesota who, meanwhile, raised corporate tax rates and raised taxes on the wealthiest Minnesotans. And just a few years down the road, the Economic Policy Institute did a study of the two states, and on almost every measure, Minnesota was outperforming Wisconsin. Look at the 2017 tax cut that went into effect in 2018. They, of course, promised that all this private investment would happen. Well, here's the thing. It didn't really spur a whole bunch of new private investment. It was fairly flat between fourth quarter 2017 and first quarter 2018. This group did a report regarding all the venture capital money that was spent in the country in that first quarter of 2018 following the new tax law. And while the overall spending was just slightly up a little bit from $20.3 billion to $21.1 billion, what was really interesting about this study is where the money went, because they looked at that. Where did the money go? It went to 3 states, just 3 states. Half the money went to one state. Anyone guess where that state was? California. If you guessed California, you're right. California got half of the total venture capital money in the United States invested in the first quarter of 2018 following this new tax bill. Because, and again, it's a blue state, high tax state. Conservatives love to claim that nobody wants to do business in California because it's a high tax state. But the reality is, private money is more willing to invest in communities that are willing to invest in themselves in the form of a sustainable and workable tax base. The next 2 states on this list were New York and Massachusetts at 2.4 and 2.6 billion, respectively. Those 3 states accounted for almost 80% of all the venture capital money invested in the United States in the first quarter following that tax cut, in the first quarter of 2018. All of the money, virtually all of the money being spent by private equity, private capital, was going to blue states, high tax states. How much did Indiana get? $35 million. That's a drop in the bucket when you're talking about $21.1 billion total dollars. So the reality here is private money is going to invest in areas of the country that are willing to invest in themselves. And prescribing tax cuts all the time as your platform for prosperity is a lie. And it's damaging because it's telling you to divest from yourselves as a community. Now,